The alarm bells screamed through the command center of Defense Station Alpha 9. Admiral Zekthar's forearms moved quickly across his control panel as red lights flashed everywhere. His blue skin turned pale as he stared at the main screen. "Report," he shouted to his crew. "Sir, we have an unknown ship entering Nexus 7 sector," said Lieutenant Vexra, her tentacles dancing over her instruments. "It just appeared on our sensors 5 minutes ago." Zekthar frowned. The Nexus 7 sector was the most protected area in the galaxy. Home to the Galactic Council's main worlds, it had defense systems that could stop entire fleets. Nothing got through without permission. Nothing. "Show me the ship," he ordered. The main screen changed to show a strange vessel floating in space. Zekthar had seen many ships in his long career, but this one made him confused. It looked like someone had built it in their backyard. The hull was covered in brown rust. Pieces of metal were welded on in rough patches. It had a boxy shape with no smooth curves like proper starships. "What kind of ship is that?" he asked. "Unknown design, sir," replied Vexra. "It's about 300 meters long. The hull appears to be made of basic steel alloys. We're detecting primitive nuclear reactors for power." "Nuclear reactors?" Zekthar laughed. "Who still uses nuclear power in space? That technology is thousands of years old." The communications officer, a tall being with gray skin called Mordek, looked up from his station. "Sir, the ship is not responding to our hails. We've tried all standard frequencies." Zekthar studied the ugly ship on his screen. How had something so primitive gotten past their defenses? Their sensor nets could detect a single fighter craft from 50 light-years away. Their energy barriers could stop planet-killer weapons. Yet this rusty bucket of bolts had just sailed right through everything. "Sir," said Chief Scanner Tolwyn, "I'm reading the ship's energy signature. It's very weak. The reactors are barely producing enough power to keep life support running." "Maybe it's a refugee ship," suggested Vexra, "some lost colony trying to reach civilized space." "In the most protected sector of the galaxy?" Zekthar shook his head. "I don't think so. Deploy the interceptor squadron. Have Captain Rexmore's cruisers move to surround the ship, but tell them to be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with." 3 sleek hegemony cruisers moved toward the strange vessel. Each cruiser was 5 times larger than the unknown ship and carried enough firepower to destroy small moons. They took positions around the intruder, weapons ready but not yet powered up. Captain Rexmore's voice came through the speakers. "Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted space. Identify yourself immediately or prepare to be boarded." For several minutes there was only silence. The strange ship continued to drift forward slowly, as if it didn't care about the warships surrounding it. Then the communications board lit up. "This is the UES Defiant," came a voice through the speakers. The voice was calm and spoke in perfect galactic standard, though with an accent none of them had heard before. "We're just passing through your space. Please stand down your weapons." The bridge fell silent. Zekthar's eyes went wide. The crew looked at each other in shock. "Did that ship just tell us to stand down?" whispered Vexra. "UES," said Mordek slowly. "That prefix isn't in our database." "What does UES mean?" Zekthar activated his communicator to speak directly to the strange ship. "UES Defiant, this is Admiral Zekthar of the Hegemony Defense Fleet. You have entered the most secure sector in the galaxy without permission. State your origin and purpose." "We're from Earth," the voice replied. "And like I said, we're just passing through. We don't want any trouble." "Earth?" Zekthar looked at his science officer. "Run that through the database." Tolwyn's fingers moved quickly. After a moment, he looked up with surprise. "Sir, Earth is listed as a primitive world in the Outer Rim. Class M planet, single species called humans. They're marked as pre-spaceflight. The last survey was done 50 years ago and showed they hadn't even reached their own moon yet." "That can't be right," said Zekthar. "No pre-spaceflight species could build a faster-than-light ship." "Sir," interrupted Vexra, "I'm detecting something strange. The ship's hull is definitely primitive steel and iron, but I'm getting some odd readings from inside. There are sections my scanners can't penetrate." "What do you mean, can't penetrate?" "I mean the scanner beams are being absorbed or redirected somehow. I can see the outer hull clearly, but parts of the interior are just blank spots on my screen." Zekthar felt a chill run through his body. In 30 years of military service, he had never seen scanner-proof materials on such a primitive-looking ship. "Captain Rexmore," he called to the cruiser squadron. "What do your sensors show?" "Same thing, Admiral. This ship is definitely crude construction on the outside, but there's something underneath that we can't scan. And sir, there's another thing. What? The ship's path. It's not random. Looking at its course, it's heading directly toward Council Prime, like it knows exactly where it's going. Zekthar's blood ran cold. Council Prime was the capital world of the Galactic Council, home to trillions of beings and the seat of galactic government. It was the most protected planet in known space. UES Defiant, he called again. You will change course immediately and prepare to be escorted to a holding station for inspection. Negative, came the calm reply. We have somewhere to be. We're not stopping. The bridge crew stared at each other. No one talked to the hegemony defense fleet like that. No one refused their orders. Sir, said the weapons officer, should we fire a warning shot? Zekthar hesitated. The ship looked harmless, but something about this whole situation felt wrong. How had it gotten past their defenses? Why couldn't they scan it properly? And who were these humans who acted like they owned the galaxy? Unknown vessel, you are in violation of 17 galactic laws, he announced. Halt your engines and prepare for boarding, or we will use force. Admiral, the voice from the ship replied, and for the first time it sounded slightly annoyed. We really don't want any trouble. We'll be out of your space in a few hours. Just let us pass. That's not how this works, Zekthar said firmly. No one enters Nexus 7 without permission. No one. There was a long pause. Then the voice came back, still calm but with something underneath that made Zekthar's skin crawl. Admiral, you have 3 beautiful cruisers there. I'd hate to see anything happen to them. Stand down. The threat was quiet, almost gentle, but something in the human's tone made every being on the bridge step back from their stations. Are they threatening us? Whispered Mordek. Zekthar looked at the rusty, primitive ship on his screen. 3 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy surrounded it. The human ship looked like it would fall apart if someone sneezed on it, but for some reason Admiral Zekthar was afraid. Get me the Galactic Council, he ordered. Emergency priority. Tell them we have a first contact situation, and it's not going according to any of our protocols. As his crew rushed to carry out his orders, Zekthar kept staring at the strange human ship. Something was very wrong here, and he had a feeling that things were about to get much worse. The Galactic Council's emergency session was called within an hour. Representatives from 12 major species gathered in the Great Chamber on Council Prime. The room was a marvel of architecture, with floating platforms for each delegation and a massive holographic display in the center. High Counselor Veltar, an ancient being with silver skin and wise eyes, called the session to order. We are here to discuss the unauthorized vessel that has entered Nexus 7. Admiral Zekthar, please report. Zekthar's image appeared in the hologram, broadcasting from his command ship. Counselors, we are dealing with something unprecedented. A ship claiming to be from Earth has penetrated all our defense systems. The species calls themselves humans. Earth? Counselor Hixron, a reptilian being with sharp teeth, hissed. That's a primitive world in the outer territories. They barely have radio technology. That's what our records show, agreed Zekthar. But this ship has faster-than-light capability, and has somehow bypassed defenses that stop entire invasion fleets. The counselors murmured among themselves. Dr. Yelna, the council's chief xenobiologist, spoke up. Perhaps we should speak with them directly. First contact protocols require diplomatic communication before any hostile action. Agreed, said High Counselor Veltar. Admiral, can you establish communication with this vessel? Already done, Counselor. I'll patch them through now. The holographic display changed to show the interior of the human ship. The council members leaned forward to get their first look at this new species. The human captain appeared on screen. She was a female with dark hair tied back and brown skin. Her uniform was simple, dark blue with metal rank insignia. What struck the council most was her expression. She looked calm, almost bored, as if being surrounded by warships was a normal Tuesday for her. Good day, counselors, she said with a slight smile. I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Defiant. I understand there's been some confusion about our presence here. High Counselor Veltar spoke for the group. Captain Chen, I am High Counselor Veltar of the Galactic Council. We welcome first contact with your species, but we must address the matter of your unauthorized entry into restricted space. Captain Chen nodded. I apologize for the inconvenience. We didn't realize this area was off limits. We're still learning about your territorial boundaries. Learning? Counselor Hicksron leaned forward aggressively. Your ship has faster than light travel. You can't be as primitive as our records indicate. Records? Captain Chen raised an eyebrow. You have records on us? That's interesting. We didn't know we were being watched. The council members exchanged glances. Something about the human's tone suggested she knew more than she was letting on. Dr. Yelna spoke carefully. Our exploration ship surveyed your world decades ago. At that time, your species had barely achieved spaceflight to your own moon. Ah, yes, that survey, Captain Chen said with that same slight smile. We remember that. Nice ship you sent. Very thorough sensors. We learned a lot from watching how you operated. A chill ran through the chamber. Watching? Asked High Counselor Veltar slowly. Well, yes. You didn't think we'd just ignore a huge alien spacecraft in our system, did you? Captain Chen seemed genuinely puzzled. We may have been primitive by your standards, but we weren't blind. War Prime Koltek, the military representative, spoke for the first time. He was a large, scarred being from a warrior species. Captain, are you saying your people observed our survey mission? Observed, recorded, analyzed, Captain Chen listed casually. Your ship's stealth systems were impressive but not perfect. We learned quite a bit about your technology from that visit. The council members stared at her. Their survey ships used the most advanced stealth systems available. They were supposed to be completely undetectable to primitive species. That's impossible, stated Counselor Hicksron flatly. Is it? Captain Chen tilted her head. Let me ask you something. Why do you have 3 separate military commands for one sector? Seems inefficient. How do you know about our command structure? War Prime Koltek demanded. Your ships broadcast their command codes constantly. Not hard to figure out once you understand the pattern. Captain Chen looked genuinely curious. But seriously, why 3 commands? Wouldn't it be better to have unified leadership? High Counselor Veltar felt uncomfortable. The human was asking questions that touched on sensitive political issues. The 3-command system existed because different species refused to serve under each other's leadership. It was a compromise born of ancient prejudices. Our government structure has evolved over thousands of years, he said diplomatically. Evolved, Captain Chen repeated thoughtfully. That's one way to put it. But doesn't it make you vulnerable? I mean, what happens if you face an external threat that requires fast, coordinated response? War Prime Koltek's eyes narrowed. External threat? What do you mean? Well, hypothetically speaking, you've got this beautiful, rich sector of space with advanced technology and vast resources, but your defense systems seem designed more to keep different groups of your own people apart than to repel an outside invasion. The silence in the chamber was deafening. Captain Chen had just described the Galactic Council's greatest weakness in one sentence. You seem to know a lot about our systems for a primitive species, Koltek said dangerously. We prefer to think of ourselves as observant, Captain Chen replied cheerfully. Speaking of which, when was the last time any of you actually fought a real war? We are a peaceful confederation, Dr. Yelna said proudly. Peaceful, sure, but that's not what I asked. When did you last face an enemy that wanted to destroy you completely? When did you last have to fight for survival? The council members looked at each other uncomfortably. The answer was never. The galaxy had been at peace for over 1,000 years. There had been minor conflicts, trade disputes, and territorial arguments, but no species had faced extinction-level warfare in living memory. Why is that relevant? Asked High Counselor Veltar. Just curious about your experience level, Captain Chen said. See, where we come from, we've had to fight for everything. Our whole history is one long struggle for survival. Wars, disasters, conflicts that lasted generations. It tends to teach you things about tactics and strategy that you can't learn from textbooks. War Prime Koltek leaned forward intensely. Are you threatening the council? Threatening? Captain Chen looked shocked. Why would you think that? I'm just making conversation. Though I have to ask, if someone were to threaten you, what would you do? We would respond with appropriate force, Koltek said firmly. All 3 military commands? Working together? With unified leadership and coordinated strategy? Captain Chen's tone was innocent, but her eyes were sharp. Because from what I can see, you'd have to call a committee meeting first. The insult hit home. Several council members began arguing at once. Captain Chen watched the display with interest, as if she were studying lab animals. High Counselor Veltar called for order. Captain Chen, you seem to have strong opinions about our government structure. Not opinions, she corrected. Observations. We've been watching your broadcasts for decades. Your news services are very informative. Watching our broadcasts? Dr. Yelna asked, of course. Did you think we'd make first contact without doing our homework? Captain Chen smiled. We know all about the Hegemony War 200 years ago, the Trade Federation crisis, the Zephyrian Rebellion, very educational. The council members stared at her in growing alarm. Those conflicts were classified information, not broadcast on public channels. How do you know about classified historical events? Demanded Koltek. Captain Chen's smile grew wider. War Prime, if you're broadcasting it on any frequency, someone's listening. Rule 1 of intelligence gathering. There are no secrets in space, only information you haven't intercepted yet. The chamber fell silent. The human captain sat calmly on her ship's bridge, surrounded by warships, casually admitting to decades of espionage against the most powerful government in the galaxy. Captain, High Counselor Veltar said slowly, exactly what are your intentions in this sector? Like I told Admiral Zekthar, she replied pleasantly, we're just passing through. Though I have to say this has been a fascinating conversation. You've confirmed several theories we had about galactic civilization. What theories? Captain Chen's expression became serious for the first time. That you've been at peace so long you've forgotten how to fight. That your government is so focused on politics between species that you've lost sight of external threats, and that you're not nearly as advanced as you think you are. The last statement hung in the air like a challenge. War Prime Koltek's hand moved toward his weapon controls. I think, Captain Chen said quietly, it's time we had a more serious conversation. The emergency council session continued for 3 hours. Captain Chen answered questions with disturbing knowledge about galactic politics, military capabilities, and economic systems. Every answer revealed that humans knew far more about the galaxy than any primitive species should. Finally, High Counselor Veltar called for a private consultation. The human captain's image disappeared from the holographic display as the council went into closed session. This is a problem, stated War Prime Koltek bluntly. These humans have been spying on us for decades. They know our weaknesses, our military positions, our classified history. Perhaps we should consider them a threat, agreed Counselor Hixrun. One ship is manageable, but if they have others, Dr. Yelna shook her head. We need more information. I propose we test them. Test them how? Asked High Counselor Veltar. We have a situation in the Kepler mining system. Pirates have been attacking the ore freighters. It's a simple police action, perfect for evaluating their capabilities without risking major assets. War Prime Koltek considered this. You want to see how they fight? Exactly. If they're as primitive as they appear, it should be a routine engagement. If they're more advanced than they claim, we'll learn valuable intelligence. And if they refuse to help? Asked Counselor Hixron. Koltek smiled grimly. Then we know they're hostile and act accordingly. High Counselor Veltar nodded slowly. Very well. We'll present this as a routine request for assistance. Dr. Yelna, prepare the scenario. 20 minutes later, Captain Chen's image reappeared in the chamber. Captain, began High Counselor Veltar, we have a proposal. As a gesture of goodwill and to demonstrate peaceful intentions, would your ship be willing to assist with a minor security situation? Captain Chen leaned back in her chair. What kind of security situation? Pirates attacking civilian vessels in the Kepler system. Nothing major. A handful of raiders with small ships. Our patrol vessels are occupied elsewhere, but it would be a simple matter for a warship like yours. You want us to fight pirates, Captain Chen said flatly. To assist civilian vessels under attack, corrected Dr. Yelna. A humanitarian mission. Captain Chen was quiet for a long moment, studying the council members through the screen. Her dark eyes seemed to see more than they revealed. Sure, she said finally. We're always happy to help civilians in distress. War Prime Koltek felt a spark of surprise. He had expected more questions, demands for payment, or negotiations about jurisdiction. The human had agreed immediately. Excellent, said High Counselor Veltar. We'll transmit the coordinates and situation briefing to your ship. Already received and analyzed, Captain Chen replied casually. We'll be in position in 47 minutes. The connection ended, leaving the council members staring at a blank screen. 47 minutes? Whispered Dr. Yelna. The Kepler system is 6 hours away at maximum speed. War Prime Koltek felt a chill. Send a message to the observation squadron. Tell them to monitor everything. I want full sensor records of whatever happens next. The Kepler system was a routine mining operation, 3 small asteroids being harvested by automated equipment and a handful of worker transports. The pirates were actually 3 hegemony patrol ships with their identification transponders turned off. Weapons set to training mode. Captain Rexmore commanded the fake pirate squadron from his position behind the largest asteroid. His orders were simple: attack the mining ships, force the human vessel to respond, and gather as much data as possible about their capabilities. "Sir," reported his sensor officer, "I'm detecting a ship approaching the system, but I'm not reading any drive signatures." "What do you mean?" "I mean the ship is there, but I can't detect how it's moving. No ion trails, no gravitational disturbance, no energy emissions." Rexmore frowned. Every ship in the galaxy left some kind of trace when it moved through space. "Show me." The main screen displayed the human vessel, now clearly visible in the system. It looked exactly as primitive as before. Rusty, patched, and crude. But it was moving smoothly through space without any visible means of propulsion. "Begin the attack sequence," Rexmore ordered. "Make it look convincing." The 3 patrol ships emerged from behind the asteroids, weapons firing at the civilian mining ships. The mining vessels immediately sent distress calls, just as they had been instructed. The human ship responded instantly. Instead of the careful approach Rexmore expected, the Defiant suddenly accelerated directly toward the lead pirate vessel. "Sir, that ship is moving at impossible speed," reported his helmsman. "They're covering the distance in seconds, not minutes." Rexmore watched in growing alarm as the primitive human vessel closed the gap between them in a matter of heartbeats. "Evasive maneuvers." But it was too late. The human ship was already there, sitting motionless beside his cruiser like it had been there all along. "Unknown pirate vessel," came Captain Chen's calm voice over the communications channel. "Cease your attack on civilian ships immediately." "This is Captain Rexmore of the Free Raider Alliance," Rexmore replied, sticking to his script. "Stand down or be destroyed." "Rexmore," Captain Chen said thoughtfully. "That's a hegemony name, isn't it? Interesting choice for a pirate captain." Rexmore's blood went cold. How did she know hegemony naming conventions? "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. "Sure you don't. Tell me, Captain, are those training weapons you're using? Because your energy signatures look awfully familiar." On the bridge of his ship, Rexmore stared at his weapons display. The human was right. They were using training weapons set to minimal power. But their sensors should have been completely unable to detect that level of detail. "Sir?" whispered his weapons officer. How could they possibly know that? Before Rexmore could answer, alarms began sounding throughout his ship. "What's happening?" he demanded. "Sir, we're being scanned," reported the sensor officer, "but not with normal scanners. This is something else. It's like they're reading our computer systems directly." On the screen, Captain Chen smiled. "Nice ships you have there. Hegemony Defense Fleet, registry numbers HDH 7741, HDH 8832, and HDH 9901. Commissioned 3 years ago, 5 years ago, and 18 months ago, respectively. Current crew complements are 47, 52, and 49 beings." Rexmore's mouth fell open. That information was classified and stored in encrypted military databases. Weapons are Mark 7 plasma cannons, currently set to training mode with 15% power output. Captain Chen continued conversationally. "Shields are standard military grade, but only raised to half strength. And unless I'm mistaken, you've got orders to make this look like a real pirate attack, while gathering intelligence on our capabilities." The bridge fell silent. Every word was exactly correct. "How?" Rexmore started to ask. "Experience," Captain Chen replied simply. "We've seen this kind of operation before. The fake distress calls, the convenient positioning, the weapons set to training mode. It's a classic intelligence gathering scenario." "Sir," the communications officer whispered urgently, "she's right about everything. Ship registries, crew numbers, weapon settings, even our orders." "How is that possible?" Rexmore had no answer. The human ship sat beside them looking like a piece of space junk, but somehow it had penetrated their most secure systems in minutes. "Captain Chen," he said slowly. "What are you?" "We're humans," she replied pleasantly, "and we're very good at paying attention. Now shall we finish this little test of yours? Or would you prefer to report back to War Prime Coltech that his intelligence operation was compromised before it started?" Rexmore's heart nearly stopped. Koltek's involvement was known only to the highest levels of military command. "Sir," his sensor officer said in a shaking voice, "I'm detecting something else. There are more ships out there." "More pirates?" "No, sir, more human ships. They're decloaking all around the system." Rexmore looked at his tactical display in horror. 12 more vessels, each one looking as primitive and rusty as the Defiant, were now visible throughout the Kepler system. They had been there the entire time, invisible to every sensor and detection system the hegemony possessed. "Gentlemen," Captain Chen said softly, "I think it's time we had that serious conversation I mentioned earlier." The emergency session of the Galactic Council reconvened within hours. This time the atmosphere was very different. Gone were the confident voices and casual dismissal of the primitive humans. The chamber buzzed with nervous energy as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. High Counselor Veltar called for order, but his voice shook slightly. "War Prime Koltek, please give your report on the Kepler incident." Koltek stood at his podium, his usual confident demeanor replaced by obvious concern. "The operation was a complete failure. The humans not only detected our deception immediately, but they demonstrated capabilities that far exceed anything in our databases." "Explain," demanded Counselor Hixeron. "They penetrated our most secure computer systems in minutes. They knew our ship registries, crew complements, weapon settings, and even the classified nature of the mission itself." Koltek paused, looking around the chamber. "But that's not the worst part." "What could be worse than complete intelligence penetration?" asked Dr. Yelna. 13 human ships decloaked in the Kepler system. They had been there the entire time, completely invisible to our sensors. Our best detection system saw nothing until they chose to reveal themselves. The chamber erupted in worried voices. Representatives shouted questions and concerns in a dozen different languages. "Order," High Counselor Veltar called. "War Prime, are you saying these humans have cloaking technology superior to ours?" "I'm saying they have stealth technology that makes ours look like children's toys," Koltek replied grimly. "And that's not all. We've been analyzing the data from the encounter." He activated the holographic display, showing sensor readings from the test engagement. "Look at these movement patterns. The human ships don't just have superior stealth. They have propulsion systems that violate several laws of physics as we understand them." "What do you mean?" asked Dr. Yelna. "They move without any detectable energy signature. No ion trails, no gravitational disturbance, no heat emissions. It's as if they're not using engines at all." Counselor Hixeron hissed in frustration. "That's impossible. Every ship needs some form of propulsion." "Tell that to the humans," Koltek said dryly, "because they're doing it anyway." High Counselor Veltar studied the data with growing alarm. "Have we been able to contact them since the incident?" "Captain Chen has agreed to another communication session. She should be connecting shortly." As if summoned by his words, the holographic display changed to show Captain Chen's face. She looked exactly as calm as before. But now there was something else in her expression, a kind of patient waiting, like someone who had been holding back and was finally ready to speak freely. "Counselors," she said with a slight nod, "I trust you found the demonstration educational." "Captain Chen," High Counselor Veltar said carefully, "we need to discuss what happened in the Kepler system." "You mean your intelligence-gathering operation?" "It was well planned, I'll give you that. Using fake pirates to test our capabilities while maintaining plausible deniability. Very professional." War Prime Koltek leaned forward. "How did you penetrate our computer systems?" "We didn't," Captain Chen replied simply. "We just listened." "Listened to what?" "Everything. Your ships broadcast constantly. Navigation data, system status, crew communications, tactical networks. You seem to think that encryption makes information invisible, but encryption is just a puzzle, and humans are very good at solving puzzles." Dr. Yelna spoke up. "Captain, our encryption systems are quantum-based and theoretically unbreakable." "Theoretically," Captain Chen agreed. "But theory and practice are different things. We've had decades to work on your codes. When someone broadcasts the same patterns for 50 years, you eventually figure out what they're saying. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. If the humans could break their most secure communications, then nothing was secret. No military plans, no diplomatic negotiations, no classified research. How long?" asked High Counselor Veltar quietly. "How long what?" "How long have you been listening to our communications?" Captain Chen tilted her head thoughtfully. "Since about 6 months after your first survey of our system, We figured if you were going to spy on us, we might as well return the favor. 6 months. Counselor Hicksron's voice was barely a whisper. You've been intercepting our communications for decades. Not just intercepting. Analyzing, cataloging, and learning from them. Do you want to know what we discovered? The chamber fell silent. No one wanted to hear the answer, but they all needed to know. Your government is completely corrupt, Captain Chen said conversationally. Not evil, necessarily, but bureaucratic to the point of paralysis. You have 17 different agencies that handle first contact protocols, and they spend more time fighting each other than actually making contact with new species. That's classified information, stammered Dr. Yelna. It's public record if you know where to look. Your own news services report on interagency conflicts constantly. Captain Chen leaned forward slightly. But here's what really concerns us. You've been at peace for so long that you've forgotten what war actually means. War Prime Koltek bristled. We are perfectly capable of defending ourselves. Against what? Trade disputes? Political protests? When was the last time anyone in this chamber personally fought in a real battle? When did any of your species last face extinction? The silence stretched uncomfortably. I thought so, Captain Chen continued. You've got beautiful ships, impressive weapons, and no idea how to actually use them against a real enemy. Your tactics are centuries out of date. Your strategies assume your opponents will follow the same rules you do, and your command structure is designed for politics, not warfare. Are you threatening us? Demanded Koltek. No, Captain Chen replied firmly. We're not your enemy, War Prime. But enemies exist, and when they find you, you won't be ready. High Counselor Veltar felt a chill run through his body. What enemies? The galaxy is a big place, Counselor. You've explored maybe 10% of it. There are species out there that make your worst nightmares look friendly. We've encountered a few of them. Encountered? Dr. Yelna asked. Fought. Defeated. Driven back to whatever holes they crawled out of. Captain Chen's expression grew hard. Because unlike you, we never forgot that sometimes peace is only maintained by those willing to make war. If such threats exist, Counselor Hicksron said skeptically, why haven't we detected them? Because you're not looking in the right places. And because we've been dealing with them before they become your problem. The statement hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. What do you mean dealing with them? Asked High Counselor Veltar slowly. Those mysterious disappearances of pirate fleets in the Outer Rim? That was us. The slave ships that vanished without a trace? Us. The sudden collapse of the Syndicate crime organization 3 years ago? Also us, Captain Chen smiled coldly. You thought those were random events, accidents, or internal conflicts. They weren't. We've been cleaning up your neighborhood for decades, keeping the real monsters away from your peaceful little corner of space. War Prime Koltek stared at her in shock. You've been conducting military operations in our space without authorization? We've been saving your lives without asking for permission, Captain Chen corrected. Because if we had asked, you would have formed a committee to study the request, then spent 5 years debating jurisdiction and proper procedures while entire worlds burned. This is outrageous. Counselor Hicksron stood up angrily. You admit to violating our sovereignty, conducting illegal military operations and spying on our government for decades. Yes, Captain Chen said simply. And if we hadn't, half of your species would be dead or enslaved by now. The chamber erupted in angry voices again, but this time High Counselor Veltar didn't call for order. He sat in his chair, staring at the human captain, and slowly began to understand the true scope of what they were dealing with. Captain, he said quietly, cutting through the noise. What do you want? Captain Chen's expression softened slightly at High Counselor Veltar's question. For the first time since the conversation began, she looked almost sad. What do we want? She repeated quietly. We want to stop hiding. The chamber fell silent. Even the angry voices stopped as everyone focused on the human captain's words. For 47 years, we've watched your civilization from the shadows. We've seen the good and the bad, the progress and the stagnation. We've protected you from threats you never knew existed, cleaned up messes you never knew were made, and prevented disasters you never knew were coming. Captain Chen paused, looking at each council member in turn. But we're tired of being invisible guardians. We're tired of watching good people suffer while bureaucrats debate proper procedures. We're tired of fighting monsters alone while the people we're protecting argue about territorial boundaries. So what are you proposing? Asked High Counselor Veltar. Partnership, Captain Chen said simply. Real partnership. Not the kind where you pretend to include us while keeping us at arm's length. Not the kind where you study us like interesting animals. The kind where we work together to make the galaxy a better place. War Prime Koltek leaned forward suspiciously. And if we refuse? Captain Chen shrugged. Then nothing changes. We go back to the shadows, you go back to your meetings, and the galaxy continues as it always has. Pirates get bolder. Slavers expand their operations, and eventually something bigger and nastier than you can imagine shows up at your doorstep. You mean you'd abandon us? Dr. Yelna asked. No, Captain Chen said firmly. We'd never abandon innocent people to suffer. But we wouldn't waste time trying to work with a government that values procedure over results. We'd just continue doing what we've always done. Protecting the galaxy despite your politics, not because of them. Counselor Hicksron hissed in frustration. This is extortion. This is reality, Captain Chen replied calmly. We're offering to share 47 years of intelligence data, advanced technology, and military expertise. We're offering to help you reform your government, strengthen your defenses, and prepare for threats you don't even know exist yet. She leaned forward, her dark eyes intense. But we won't do it halfway. Either you're partners with us or you're not. Either you trust us enough to let us help, or you don't. We won't spend another 50 years watching you debate while people die. High Counselor Veltar felt the weight of decision settling on his shoulders. Around the chamber, he could see the other council members struggling with the same realization. Everything they thought they knew about their place in the galaxy had been turned upside down in a few hours. Captain, he said slowly, you're asking us to trust a species that has been spying on us for decades. A species that admits to conducting unauthorized military operations in our space. A species that has technology we can barely comprehend. Yes, Captain Chen agreed. I am. Why should we trust you? Captain Chen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Because we could have conquered you any time in the last 4 decades. Because we could have taken everything we wanted and left you with nothing. Because we could have let those pirates and slavers and worse things tear your civilization apart while we watched from safety. She gestured to something off-screen, and the holographic display changed to show a star map of the galaxy. Red dots marked locations throughout space. Hundreds of them. Every red mark is a threat we've neutralized in the last 40 years. Pirates, slavers, weapons dealers, species that view other sentient beings as food or entertainment. Some of them were planning to attack Council space directly. Others were just expanding in your direction. The map was covered in red dots. There were so many that some sectors looked completely red. We didn't have to do any of that, Captain Chen continued. Earth is far enough from Council space that most of these threats would never have reached us. We fought them because it was the right thing to do, not because we had to. Dr. Yelna stared at the map in shock. All of those were threats to the galaxy? All of those were threats to innocent people, Captain Chen corrected. Some threatened the Council directly. Others threatened smaller civilizations, colony worlds, trade routes. We don't make distinctions based on political importance. War Prime Koltek studied the tactical implications. The scope of operations required for this. How many ships do you have? Enough, Captain Chen replied simply. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting until you decide whether we're partners or not. Captain Chen's tone became businesslike again. Here's what we're offering. Full intelligence sharing on galactic threats. Technology transfer to improve your defensive capabilities. Military cooperation to respond to future crises. And reform assistance to make your government actually functional. And what do you want in return? Asked High Counselor Veltar. Recognition, legitimacy, a voice in galactic affairs proportional to our contribution. Captain Chen paused. And an end to the bureaucratic delays that cost lives while you debate proper procedures. Counselor Hicksron stood up angrily. You're demanding we restructure our entire government to suit your preferences. I'm demanding you restructure your government to actually work, Captain Chen shot back. How many people died in the Outer Rim while you spent 6 months debating whether to send aid? How many colonies were abandoned because you couldn't decide which agency had jurisdiction? The accusation hit home. The Outer Rim crisis had been a political disaster, with multiple agencies fighting over authority, while refugee ships ran out of supplies. Those were complex situations. Dr. Yelna protested. Those were simple situations made complex by your bureaucracy, Captain Chen replied. People needed help. You could provide help. Everything else was just paperwork. High Counselor Veltar raised his hand for silence. The chamber quieted as he considered everything they had learned. Captain Chen, he said finally, this is not a decision the Council can make quickly. We need time to discuss, to consult with our governments, to consider the implications. How much time? Captain Chen asked. Months, perhaps years. Changes of this magnitude require careful consideration. Captain Chen sighed. Counselor, while you're carefully considering, 3 more colony worlds will be attacked by raiders. The Syndicate's replacement organization will expand into 4 new sectors, and something much worse than pirates will start moving in your direction from the Galactic Core. Something worse? War Prime Koltek demanded. What are you talking about? We've been tracking unusual energy signatures moving coreward for the past 6 months. Something big, something hostile, and something that makes every threat we've faced look like a training exercise. Captain Chen's expression grew grim. Our best estimates give you maybe 2 years before first contact. Less if they're moving faster than we think. The chamber fell silent. The weight of impending catastrophe settled over the council members like a shroud. You're certain? Asked High Counselor Veltar quietly. Certain enough that we're willing to risk revealing ourselves to prepare you, Captain Chen replied. We could have stayed hidden, let you handle it yourselves, and picked up the pieces afterward. Instead, we're here, offering to help. High Counselor Veltar looked around the chamber at his fellow council members. He saw fear, uncertainty, and the slow dawning of understanding. The galaxy they thought they knew was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous and complex. What do you need from us? He asked. Captain Chen smiled for the first time since the conversation began, and it was genuine warmth. Right now, just say yes. Say you're willing to try partnership instead of politics. Everything else we can figure out together. High Counselor Veltar took a deep breath and made the decision that would change the galaxy forever. Yes, he said simply. Around the chamber, other council members began nodding. Even Counselor Hixron, despite his protests, gave a reluctant agreement. Good, Captain Chen said, because you're about to meet the rest of the fleet. The display changed to show space around Council Prime. Dozens of human ships were decloaking, appearing like ghosts materializing in the void. Not primitive, rust-covered vessels like the Defiant, but sleek, powerful warships that radiated quiet menace. The primitive ships were just camouflage, Captain Chen explained casually. We thought it would be less intimidating to introduce ourselves gradually. But since we're partners now, you might as well see what we really look like. As the council members stared in awe at the fleet surrounding their capital world, Captain Chen's final words carried a promise and a warning. Welcome to the real galaxy, counselors. It's more dangerous than you imagined, but you're not facing it alone anymore. The age of human guardianship was over. The age of true partnership had begun.